Mujer a punto de morir escucha a Dios y le pasa esto.
I interviewed a woman. Her name was Barbara. Barbara was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis as a teenager, have all her medical records, have multiple witnesses to this. She began deteriorating rapidly. Over 16 years, worse and worse and worse and worse. Hospitalized repeatedly with lung collapses and things. Finally, her doctors and her parents got together and said, you know what, next time she gets pneumonia, let's just let her die. I mean, this is ridiculous. She's just going to suffer this way. Let's just let her die. So she's in hospice. One lung is collapsed. One lung is at 50%. She's blind. All she can see are shapes, gray shapes. She has a tube in her throat so she can breathe. It goes to oxygen canisters in her garage so she could be kept alive because she couldn't breathe on her own. She had lost all her muscle tone, hadn't walked in 7 years. She had lost all her muscle tone. Her fingers were so curled up that her fingers were touching her wrists, and her toes were extended like this. She couldn't wear slippers. So she's dying. She's in her bed at home. And somebody called in WMBI, which is the Christian radio station in Chicago, and said, hey, Barbara's dying, this woman. Could someone pray for her? Just ask your audience, pray for her. Well, we documented that 450 people began praying for Barbara, because we know, because they wrote letters to Barbara saying, I'm praying for you. Pentecost Sunday comes. She's got 2 or 3 of her friends there who are reading these letters of people who are praying for her, reading them to Barbara. And out of nowhere, from the corner of the room where there's nobody sitting, she hears the voice of God saying, get up, my child, and walk. So she's stunned. Her friends didn't hear. She said, go get my parents. And she rips the tube from her throat and she jumps out of bed. So when I'm interviewing her, I said, what's the first thing you noticed? She said, Lee, I jumped out of bed and the first thing I noticed, my feet were flat on the ground. They'd been curled, they'd been extended for a couple of years. And then I looked and my hands had opened up. And then she said, the third thing I noticed, I could see. Her mother comes running in and grabs her calves and said, your muscle tone has returned. Her muscle tone returned to her legs. Her father came in and started waltzing around the room with her. It was Sunday night, Pentecost Sunday, and they went to a Wesleyan church in Wheaton, Illinois. So they came to the service, and as they came in, the pastor was up front, and he said, does anybody have any announcements? Barbara comes walking down the main aisle. Well, nobody had seen Barbara walk in 7 years. They all knew she was on the verge of dying. And the whole place exploded with people singing, Amazing Grace, I once was blind and now I see. She was instantaneously, completely, totally healed of multiple sclerosis in that instant by God.
Wow.
Totally healed. She had 2 main doctors. One doctor, she went to see him that Monday. She went to see her doctor. And he said later, when I saw her walking down the corridor, I thought, this must be a ghost. She must have died. Because this is impossible. This is medically impossible. 2 of her doctors wrote books about it because they said, there is no medical explanation for this. I got to know Barbara. We have multiple eyewitnesses. We've got the doctors who knew her and treated her and wrote books about it. We've got records from the Mayo Clinic. She ended up marrying a pastor and had a little church in Fredericksburg, Virginia.